Okay, so welcome back, everybody. My name is Kevin Lyons. I'm the co-director of the Office of Climate Action. I'm also on the faculty at the Rutgers Business School in the Supply Chain Management Department. And along with my colleague, Magda, who's in the audience, we direct the Business School's Public-Private Community Partnership Program. And like most faculty, we have at least 6 other jobs that we do. And most of the ones that I am involved with are dealing with this particular topic of this roundtable, which is partnerships. And so we'll get into that in a second. But one of the things that I should tell you is that as a faculty member, and all of you who are can appreciate this, the amount of work that you do, not only for the institution here at Rutgers, but for our communities as well. So sitting on commissions and councils, I sit on the council for the green economy for the state of New Jersey, and being heavily involved with the work that's happening in our city of Newark, New Jersey as well. So that's something that I believe is critically important. So this particular roundtable, Partnering for Climate Action, is the main topic here. We will be discussing a few topics. We have the panelists, which I'll introduce in a second. But again, for those who are joining us virtually, to make sure that you continue to put your questions in the chat, and Dr. Ferrero is going to make sure that hopefully we get a few of them in our session as well, because we're going to go straight to audience and chat questions right after everyone gets a chance to introduce themselves. So our speakers today will be discussing their experiences partnering with New Jersey communities and businesses to help them decarbonize and to adapt to the impacts of climate change, as well as the research and teaching and engagement initiatives that these efforts generate. Now, similar to the previous discussions, the first 2 panels, we'll begin with briefly introducing each of our panelists, and then give them a chance to talk a little bit about what they're up to. And like I said, we're going to jump right into questions after that. So to my immediate left, we have Professor Gina Wurtenberg. She is the Associate Director for Corporate Social Innovation and Education at Rutgers Institute for Corporate Social Innovation. And she's also an Associate Professor at the Business School with me as well. So Gina. Next, we have Professor Robert Lombach. He's an associate professor in the School of Public Health and the Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences Institute. So thank you, Rob. Next, we have Dr. Marjorie Kaplan. She is the co-director of the New Jersey Climate Change Resource Center, a co-facilitator for the New Jersey Climate Change Alliance, and the associate director of the Rutgers Climate Institute. As I said, multiple titles. Or you can't work at Rutgers. Next, we have Stephen Kellerman. He's the Director of Emergency Management Services at Rutgers. I'm sure that he has 5 or 6 other titles as well, but we'll let him talk about that. And we have, representing our students and students at Camden, Larodge Johnson is a community activist, a photographer, a member of the Office of Climate Action Student Advisory Board, and an undergraduate student at Rutgers Camden. So even our students have multiple titles as well, so she's well prepared to be on the faculty. So I'm going to start my initial round of questions. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists a question, let them have 5 minutes to respond, and then, like I said, we'll jump into the audience questions. So Gina, could you get us started by talking about the work that you do at the Rutgers Institute for Corporate Social Innovation?
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay? All right. So I'm thrilled to be here and to represent the Rutgers Business School and the Rutgers Institute for Corporate Social Innovation called RICSI. We believe that business is a really important part of the solution. We acknowledge that business has been part of the problem, and we work with businesses to help them be part of the solution. So what you see here is 4 things that I'm going to be covering. The first is, briefly, we have the RICSI 4-pillar framework, and we have a website called rixie.business.edu, and there you can see a lot more on everything that I'm covering now, including 4 blogs that I spent last summer vacation writing on each of these 4 pillars. The first pillar in the upper, the green one at the top, is on giving back to society. So here we look at strategic philanthropy around environmental and climate and other social issues, corporate social responsibility, and corporate volunteering. The next pillar, the blue one on the right, is a very powerful pillar that focuses on shared value creation, where companies don't have to trade off being profitable and successful, but actually make money and align themselves with sustainability. We also have their purpose-driven leadership. We focus a lot on leadership and mental models, and also B Corps, which are benefit corporations. The third pillar is the one that is probably most closely associated with all the work we're doing today on engaging in responsible business practices, which includes an ESG, which is taking off like gangbusters in the world of business, environment, social, and governance. It also includes paying a living wage, which is a very important aspect, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as stakeholder capitalism, which is a new way we look at business, not just about shareholders, but about all stakeholders, including the environment and the community. And the fourth pillar is advocating for social issues, which includes how companies are advocating for these issues and getting active and public policy, influencing all public policies. The corporate social innovation framework integrates all of these, and so we put that as the sort of basis of everything that we do, including all of my teaching. Just this morning, I'm proud to announce that my course on Intro to Corporate Social Innovation was approved by the faculty in the faculty meeting as a permanent course of the business school. So I'm thrilled about that. It's an MBA course integrating this pillar framework. On the right side of the chart, I also highlighted the 5 RIXI themes that we're focused on. We just completed an Inclusive Impact Summit where Bob Kopp actually spoke and introduced the climate justice aspect of it. Here we focus on the future of work, the social determinants of health, climate justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and shared prosperity. We believe that climate change is a social as well as an environmental issue, one that disproportionately impacts poorer individuals and communities, and our work in this space links social justice to climate change to ensure we move the needle in a holistic way. But as a follow-on to the Inclusive Impact Summit, and all of the sessions are available. Am I running out of time? I'm okay. Which are being published, all the recordings, and everybody can listen to all. We had some phenomenal speakers over the 2 days of the conference. We're going to be doing webinars starting in the fall on every one of these 5 topics. I just heard it said that there's a new incubator on climate justice, and I'm totally going to follow up on that and find out more about it to partner. So what we also do is partner with a lot of different companies. As you can see at the bottom, we have partnerships with Becton Dickinson, who's doing tremendous work in the health area. Novo Nordisk, doing a lot of work in these areas as well, especially around diabetes. Johnson & Johnson, doing a tremendous amount in this space. Working with Amazon, Audible, PwC, Samsung, other companies that we are also working very closely with. I'll just mention how we do this. Besides doing executive ed, webinars, papers, publishing journals, we have a really interesting thing in research called QUASI, which stands for Questions and Unanswers About Social Innovation. And what we do there, and these are all available online with readings associated with them. Many professors are using them in their classes throughout the world. And what we do there is scholarly debates where on climate-related and other social justice and sustainability-related issues. And we have somebody who takes the position of yes, no, maybe, and a practitioner weighs in. And they're really interesting sessions. The next one is coming up on Friday, on May 13th. And that one is focused on should companies reduce income inequality? So we had a couple of really interesting ones you can go back and look at on, one was on, does corporate social and environmental reporting really matter? And fascinating to see the different perspectives. We also have 2 special issues of our Rutgers Business Review, which is available online, the summer 2021 on corporate social innovation, and a new one just about to come out. And finally, as I mentioned in my teaching, I developed 2 courses. One is the MBA 3-credit elective course on Intro to Corporate Social Innovation. Kevin always guest speaks in there, and other fabulous guest speakers. And I also have an undergrad course on corporate social innovation. And the final thing I just wanted to say is that we've developed a Rutgers stackable business innovation program with a CSI concentration. And that includes 3 courses that anyone can take. They don't have to be part of our MBA program, including the Intro to CSI, Social and Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and the 3rd new one, which we're just about to offer in the fall for the first time, is on reporting and measuring corporate social performance and innovation. I think that's it.
Thank you, Gina. Well done. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Rob. So my question to you, Rob, considering partnering for climate action from a public health perspective, could you tell us about your work in the School of Public Health and the Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences Institute?
Sure. Thank you. And I want to thank the organizers for this opportunity to speak a little bit about what we're doing at the School of Public Health and at what we fondly call EOC, which is on Bush campus. The Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences Institute was founded about 35 years ago in response to a different environmental health crisis, the contaminated sites and Superfund sites that seemingly arose from nowhere but has a history here in New Jersey. Although that problem hasn't been solved, and we continue to work on those issues, our center is now working more at the intersection of environmental contaminants, particularly chemicals, and other social and environmental determinants of disease. So how there are interactions between chemical exposures and heat, for example, flooding, other issues related to climate change in particular. So this requires an interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary faculty. So we have toxicologists, exposure scientists, epidemiologists working on these problems. We're fortunate to be funded by a grant for the last 30+ years from the National Institutes of Environmental Health Sciences. It's an environmental health core center, which mandates having a community engagement core. And for the last 5 years, I've directed that core. In the last 5 years, we've tried to move towards essentially making a difference by especially working with community groups, especially community groups that are advocating and have activists working on various, again, chemical contamination issues, but more recently aligning with them on climate change and the health co-benefits of reducing carbon emissions. So we work closely with community groups, the New Jersey Environmental Justice Alliance, Clean Water Action, Sustainable Jersey City, for example, Isles and Trenton, primarily in the urban areas around the state, working on air pollution, but also other chemical contamination that goes along with carbon emissions. So in Newark, Elizabeth, Jersey City, the impacts of diesel truck traffic, diesel exhaust, which not only goes along with carbon dioxide emissions, but also black carbon, another climate-forcing contaminant. But what really motivates our partners, as well as the communities that they work in, are the health issues, the health co-benefits. It was just acknowledged earlier that climate change is an immediate issue. But in terms of really spatially immediate, what happens in communities where there's emissions from truck traffic, from the airport, from other traffic sources especially, is immediate emissions right in people's neighborhoods from trucks. So we've done research, on the interaction between psychosocial stress and air pollution in these communities, on asthma, for example. We've also been working with our community partners on issues where we support their advocacy, such as the recent Environmental Justice Bill, also known as a Cumulative Impacts Bill, that was passed by the New Jersey legislature now almost 2 years ago. There should be regulations coming out soon. We've been working with community groups and the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection on developing those rules. And then also we support our community groups in many other ways. But one issue that I wanted to just mention, in closing, I'm not sure how much more time I have, but 1 minute, is like the university's role in advocacy. I'm an associate professor. I'm a physician as well as a scientist, a health scientist. It's a challenge to do community engaged work in the university, as many of you I'm sure know. I think we need more incentives and more reduction of barriers to that in terms of the way appointments and promotions, for example, might value or devalue community engagement. So that's one thing I wanted to maybe close on that note, is that this work is really important. It does make a difference, but that it does require support from the university, and we need more of that.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate that. So now I'll move on to my friend, Marjorie. So Marjorie, you also work with communities, of course, in New Jersey in your roles at the New Jersey Climate Change Resource Center and the New Jersey Climate Change Alliance. So could you tell us a little bit about that work?
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. It's really nice to see everybody, and so many of you in person. Haven't seen you in person in so long. It's really wonderful. So I'm going to be building off the wonderful remarks of Amanda, who was here earlier, and there's so many things that I've been working on over the years that relate to everything you're all talking about, but I'm going to just stick to the question Kevin asked me about. So more than a decade ago, leaders across New Jersey, from the business community, from the government, the NGO community, and academia came together in a nonpartisan, collaborative, collective impact approach to address climate change here in the state, to form what it initially was called the New Jersey Climate Adaptation Alliance, which would tell you where you were in time, because it was more than 10 years ago, and there had been a change in government, and some of the people we were working with were a little bit more interested in working on adaptation, if we could get people to coalesce around that at the time. But the group has gone broader, and it's the Climate Change Alliance, and so it addresses both adaptation and mitigation. But it's a network, as Amanda mentioned, of diverse organizations. They share the goal of advancing science-informed climate change strategies at the state and local levels in New Jersey. And it started with a conference here at Rutgers, and myself and my colleague, Jean Herb, who's based at the Blaustein School, facilitate this group, which is led by 2 co-chairs and a steering committee. And since the beginning, it's also had the imprimatur of 2 former New Jersey governors. For those of you who've been around as long as I have, you'll recognize Tom Kean and Jim Florio. And they continue to participate in our events, and they stay involved. So folks can go to the website, and it's listed on the bottom on the left side of the slide, to see the working group topics, more than 50 reports. It's issued, and other neat things these folks are bringing to the fore in New Jersey. But its work can have far-reaching implications for communities. So I'm going to highlight one example. And in 2015, the Alliance requested Rutgers lead a science and technical advisory panel on sea level rise for New Jersey, which Professor Kopp graciously chaired, and it included many other faculty and staff experts from Rutgers and from around the country. And we published the first Science and Technical Advisory Panel report in 2016, which is the little image on the top left in the image, along with a companion report. And this was in direct response to research we'd been conducting through the Alliance that pointed to local officials asking for a set of New Jersey-specific sea level rise information. They were yearning for some more statewide guidance at that time. And so this information became usable science for projects. For example, the state then began to apply it, working with Rutgers in a multi-community resiliency planning project we had in Monmouth County.
And then in 2019, New Jersey DEP, my former employer, had its first Chief Resilience Officer who came back to Rutgers to ask us to update the panel report, which is the illustration here on the bottom left. And in both these instances, we brought in local officials as part of a practitioner panel to help the scientists understand how the locals would use this information. So these projections are now embedded in the state's official sea level rise guidance, which is the middle image on the slide, as well as in formation of regulations the state's working on now in its land use protection rules that will impact every coastal community in the state. The Alliance is now a stakeholder group to help inform the work of the New Jersey Climate Change Resource Center, one of the other hats I wear. I think I have a multiple personality disorder, but anyhow. So this center was established at Rutgers in 2020 by state law. And the legislature, in its wisdom, charged us to carry out collaborative and interdisciplinary research analysis and outreach activities that will help our state adapt, mitigate, and prepare for climate change. And Jean Herb again and I co-direct this center. The primary mission is to conduct applied research. We create planning tools. We provide practical support for addressing climate change in New Jersey and to connect with policymakers, planners, practitioners, the media, community students, and other individuals through outreach, training, and education. And we're also working to tell climate stories. So for the person who asked about climate stories, we have some climate stories, and certainly we'd love to get more. So keep them coming, and they're on our website. So I'll briefly mention two examples of work with communities we are now doing through the center. Amanda mentioned her work with the Climate Corps. Other students in the Corps have been conducting hands-on planning work with communities. I think we've been in 10 communities so far, helping them understand their climate vulnerabilities and what assets are at risk as they begin to plan for climate change. So lastly, I want to also mention we've been developing a suite of data visualization tools to help communities understand their climate risk. On the right in the slide, you'll see the municipal snapshot tool where every community in New Jersey can begin to understand the people, the places, the assets at risk of flooding, inland and tidal flooding, and temperature projections for their community. And if you want to become more connected with our work, please send me an email or sign up through the Rutgers Climate Institute website or through the Resource Center. The links are on the slide. And if you are a Rutgers faculty, staff, or students, you might want to receive our weekly internal Rutgers bulletin, which I send out every week. It has events, internships, scholarships information, and therefore it's better to sign up through the Rutgers Climate Institute website than the Resource Center website if you want to get the bulletin. So the work we're doing includes a team. It's not just me. I mentioned Jean Herb, who co-directs all this with me, and we have many other collaborators. Many of you at this table are people I work with on a regular basis. I also want to acknowledge the leadership of the Rutgers Climate Institute, Professor Anthony Broccoli, I think Tony is online, and Professor Robin Lychenko, who's here with us, as well as the New Jersey Agricultural Experiment Station and the School of Arts and Sciences, who have been supportive in many ways of this work over many, many years. And I also want to thank Professor Clint Andrews of the Blaustein School and today's host, Bob Kopp, who along with Professors Broccoli and Lychenko serve as advisors to the Resource Center. And so my last commercial, this Friday afternoon, we're having a Climate Change Resource Center Climate Academy webinar on the state of New Jersey's climate, our most recent publication. The registration is at our website, and hope to see you all in the ether online at the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. And I have a secret scientific project I'm working on, and that is cloning, you and you guys are doing so much work that we need to have more of you. So I'm going to move on to Steve. And Steve, our question for you is, how does the Rutgers Office of Emergency Management work with New Jersey communities to help them to adapt to the impacts of climate change? So that's a big one.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I'm honored to be here. The Office of Emergency Management deals with the here and now. As you can see in the slides, we deal with the disasters, the results of climate change. We deal with the flooding, and the storms are getting a lot stronger, more severe, and we have to meet with our neighboring partners, whether it be federal, state, local, or county, and start looking at the larger plan, the regional plan, sharing resources and developing. One example of that is the Middlesex County Destination 2040. That's a project that the county started to start looking at what the county's going to look like at 2040 and how we can drive ourselves to that. The area I was involved with as a stakeholder and a partner looked at land use and development, we looked at housing, and we looked at transportation. There were other groups that looked at other areas, but we looked at how the impacts are in our region, not just in New Brunswick, but along the Raritan River, along all the way out to Sayreville, and how they impact one another, and how we can work together because we can't do it on our own, and we're not our own island. And on a closer area, and you heard a lot today, at Rutgers, and I have up there one of the examples, is Cicada. It's the Command Control Interoperability Center of Advanced Data Analysis here at Rutgers, run by Fred Roberts. I'm working with Zhang in developing he's developing a flood analysis tool for the New Brunswick area along the Raritan. It's going to be an early warning system using ready data that's going to allow our communities to have access to that data and get an early alert and see what the inundation is going to be based on real time and actually to be able to look at. Along with that, Marjorie, my co-speaker here, also provides the flood data that we have and it's access to it. And I'm going to be using a lot of her in my planning as well. So she got another hat. You know, but we look at Rutgers, we have David Robinson, a climatologist, we partner with them along with our communities. Everyone asks the WWRD, what would Rutgers do? And when we have meetings, they always look at, you know, us to help drive the discussion, be the subject matter experts. We just recently in the county here went with the Blaustein Institute and Voorhees Transportation Institute to develop a pre-disaster mitigation plan for the county of Middlesex. What that does is by us developing the plan with the county allows us to get federal dollars to start mitigating some of these things that we look that affect us, the flooding, the transportation issues, and all of that. So, you know, the communities look at us as a stewardship, you know, to move the project forward, to be that mainstay, to keep them on point. And our partnerships with them is a two-way street. We work well with them. You know, I'd like to thank Bob Kopp for hosting this, and also Marjorie, and also Robin. Robin was Lachenko was very helpful along the way as I was dealing with COVID with Tony, but keeping me on point with the climate committee. But there are a few of the partnerships that we have. There's many more. And we don't do it justice in getting them out as much as we do now. And I appreciate the opportunity to bring a couple to the forefront. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Steve. And the WWRD is not a wrestling federation?
No.
No, okay, just want to make sure. Now, my favorite point. Now, I just met Larodge earlier and through Zoom. But if you notice, her title is just packed, and the convergence of arts and community work is what she's going to talk about. So could you talk about your work in Camden and how you use the arts to support your community?
Hi, I want to start off by thanking everyone on the panel today and the organizers for giving me the opportunity to elevate my message. My name is Larodge Johnson, soon to be Miller, and I'm an undergraduate marketing and photography major from Rutgers, Camden. I'm here to talk about how Rutgers is starting to make pathways that connect their students to the community. My first encounter with Rutgers building a pathway to the community is a project called A New View Camden. I'm sure it was talked about by our Chancellor Tillis when he first was sitting on the panel. A New View was a $1 million citywide art and social justice project that took place in Camden, New Jersey. I wasn't even a Rutgers student yet. I had just applied and was transferring over from Camden County College, and yet I was still inspired by the work to use art to send a societal message. Since I've come to Rutgers Camden, I've still been actively pursuing ways to engage with the community. and I've become a Bonner Civic Scholar. This has allowed me to link my civic engagement with my educational pursuits. I am pursuing a certification in civic engagement and social change, which allows me to combine my academic work with my desire to make a positive impact in the community of Camden. I started an internship with Camden Community Partnership through the Bonnick Civic Scholar Program, which allowed me to use creativity in a way that promotes social justice, environmental change, while earning funding for my career, my education. Since I've started the internship, I've been able to work on several projects around our community, starting an activist group in Camden called the We Live Here Artist Collective. We were just granted a project with the New Jersey State Council of the Arts to promote storm drain pollution and highlight where our trash goes in the form of a coloring book, which we are creating for kids. We will use the coloring book characters on sidewalks to also promote the coloring book and promote where drainage goes, promote drainage issues within the city. In the future, I would like to see more connections between Rutgers and their respective communities. I feel that would not only help the students become more engaged, but also promote positive change in society. I would like to call on all chancellor's units to promote community engagement to a more sustainable and to become a more sustainable and resilient community. I feel that art inspires, and I feel that artists can get the message out that we need to be sustainable. We need to make changes in a way that is easy to digest. So change comes with a message getting out, and messaging repeatedly, promoting action. So I just call on each unit to work with their students, to engage with their community, and to build something that can make a sustainable change in the future.
Thank you, Larodge. Excellent. And are you graduating in May?
I am actually graduating in 2024. I just transferred over, so.
Wow, so we have 2 more good years that we can squeeze out of you. That's great, so great work. So now I'm going to immediately turn this over to the audience and to our folks that are on the virtual. So questions for our panel? Start with Carrie.
Thank you. So this question is for, I believe Gina, but I think maybe you all could probably, or many of you can comment on it. She was excited to hear about, the involvement of corporations in these kind of climate debates. And the question from Xenia was how much the idea of greenwashing comes up, and how best to kind of detect and combat greenwashing.
Absolutely. So that issue is very important, and now there's a whole nother thing called purpose washing. So many years ago when I was doing my work around my book, The Sustainable Enterprise Field Book, I came across Teradata's 6 Sins of Greenwashing, and it stood the test of time. And so we really need to push back on companies that are doing these various things. Among the 6 sins, spending more money on advertising about what you're doing than what you're actually doing. Fibs, outright just sort of exaggerations. Outright lies, and you can Google the 6 sins of greenwashing and see the rest. But at the time that I originally looked at that 2007 report, which is still available, it's a PDF. If anybody needs it, just send me an email if you can't find it. 95%, I'll say that again, 95% of the things you heard was greenwashing. Fit into one of those categories. They recently redid it, and it has come down somewhat. I don't remember the exact percentage, but every time I hear a commercial, I'm like, greenwashing, greenwashing. I'm teaching my granddaughter, greenwashing. because it's still very prevalent, and now, as much as purpose is so important, purpose, all the companies are getting into, oh, we're purpose, purpose, purpose. It's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. So companies are not necessarily practicing what they're preaching. And if you go to, for example, Glassdoor, I actually wrote a chapter on this in a book. You can see we compared what the companies are saying with what the employees are saying on Glassdoor, and it was like two totally different stories, especially around like work-life balance. The companies are saying, oh, we support work-life balance. However, we make you be available 24/7, 7 days a week. And so these are really important issues, and we need to continue to push back and advocate.
Does anyone else have, whether it's corporate related or any other type of greenwashing? I mean, obviously the work that we do, it's important to not only document and talk about it in real time, but it's got to be real. I mean, we're dealing with people's lives. So anyone? You don't want to talk on the corporate audience.
Hi again, and just to be perfectly honest, I already know Larodge, and I'm going to ask her a question, and it's going to be slightly different. Larodge, can you tell us a little bit more about A New View, the project itself, and how it helped to transform, not just highlight the issue of illegal dumping in Camden, which is a real problem there, but also helped residents in Camden to reorient how they thought of their own city, and also neighboring areas, because Camden has often had to sort of contend with a lot of negative views, and like the whole name of A New View is really like, let's have a new take on what Camden is and how it's doing.
Sure. So A New View was a $1 million Bloomberg-funded grant that the Camden Cooperative Partnership combined with with Rutgers and also Subaru and several other corporations within the community came together to highlight dumping within the city of Camden. The city of Camden has a reputation of being a dangerous urban area, and it doesn't highlight the people that actually live in the city of Camden. 3 generations of my family have lived in Camden. My grandmother came to Camden during the Great Migration of African Americans up to the north, and my mother grew up in Camden, came to Rutgers, New Brunswick, where she got her degree in social work, and then now I'm here active in the community. When I grew up in California, but when I came out to Camden, the first thing I saw, or the feeling that I got, just was that people had threw the city away. There was no engagement between the citizens and anyone else. But there's so many good families. There's so many good things that were happening in Camden. So the community itself started the process and brought on all of their partners, Rutgers being part of them, to get the funding together in order to get this project started. It was 6 artists that came down into the city and put up 6 different sites. There was a panther, there was a robot, there are phoenix rising, so it's like bamboo phoenixes. And there was the biodiaphragmatic, and I worked on probably 5 of and then turntable, which used masks to highlight don't throw away masks, and just show that there were other things to offer out of Camden. And basically give a new view. So that was the name of it. So just working with it, it sparked activism within me. It showed how art can highlight problems that are going on within the community and also change opinions. And so it's inspired me to really get out there and reach out there and deliver a message that I feel needs to be delivered, which also applies to the climate, because there's a lot of environmental racism that goes on within the city of Camden, and a lot of other problems that they face. So just watching Rutgers come in and watching the way that the community is able to get engaged, I feel like there is a transformation. I feel like there's a renaissance forming within Camden. I feel like that will elevate the city. So I just feel like this is something that can help across all communities, because I know Newark faces some of the same issues, and I know that if we build a community and grow together, like as a community grows, it starts off small and it can grow larger and larger and larger, as well as a movement. That's why I started working with a group, and we started the We Live Here Artist Collective to use our artwork to show that you don't have to stigmatize a city. Things are dynamic, people are dynamic, situations are dynamic. So just always take that into account. And so hopefully in the future, we can see change in the community and get a different view of the city.
Thank you. Let's go to online and then you.
So for this panel, there's some questions about, we agree that, this is a very local problem and a statewide problem. But some of the folks online were wondering about Rutgers partnerships, either nationally or especially internationally, around efforts that are being done. This kind of global, moving to the global level.
So Rob, Marjorie?
I'll take a quick stab. One thing we are part of is something called the University Climate Change Collaborative. It's a UC3. It's facilitated by a group called Second Nature, and it's R1 universities in North America. So it's an opportunity for us to engage with colleagues from Canada, the United States, and Mexico, and we are working now towards things like trying to develop collaborative approaches to preparing for, say, COP27, and hopefully some more things you'll be hearing more about that. And also, we've been able to, through that, create a new program they've started called the UC3 Fellows Program. And we have we have a couple students that have participated. It's getting off the ground. Each of the universities can come together and they can sort of identify an idea and then work towards sponsoring a postdoc or graduate student to work on this idea. So one of the areas in which the fellows have been working is developing a set of equity principles for universities, climate justice and equity principles that universities could use. I think the University of California sort of led that, and then colleagues at UBC. And we have a student here who's in the geography department who's working with us on that, and one from Blaustein. The other one was something very similar to the theme of this Climate Action Office, which is how universities can help their communities address carbon emissions and mitigate carbon emissions. And so it's just sort of hopping off the ground now, but I think there'll be more coming down the pike.
Rob, and then Gina?
Thank you. Our center is one of more than 20 NIEHS-funded centers for environmental health across the country, and each center has a core center for community engagement, and we share resources. Generally, we all work pretty much locally, but we collaborate. And then also there's a NIH initiative now that's going to be headed, or at least sort of steered by the NIEHS around climate change and health. So we're looking forward to additional funding and resources to do not only the science, but also the community engagement around climate change and health.
Gina.
Also, can I just add to what I was saying, is that we have many faculty who do work all over the world. And so, it doesn't necessarily have to come through any one office, but they do work all over the place. They do work in Southeast Asia, they do work in Antarctica, they do work in the Arctic, and they collaborate with scientists all over the place. So I think that's just sort of inherent in the way we work. And I'm forgetting what I was going to say, so I'll be quiet.
That's right.
No,
Go ahead, Gina.
thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to add that we're very active in the UN Global Compact, which is all around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And specifically, we're a signatory to the UN Prime, Principles for Responsible Management Education. You can go to unprme.org and see the Rutgers school report, which includes a lot of the things that you all are talking about, so that's for the whole world to see. And just recently, we hosted conferences around this last year, and we also were published in the Responsible Management Education book with a piece on how we're collaborating. The Prime is extremely global. There are representing, I think, over 100 countries around the world, and it's been very active. So if anybody's interested in UN Prime, please let me know.
Excellent, Gina. Oh, sorry. I didn't know that you were way back there, but absolutely, next question. We have 5 minutes to go, so I'm sure we can get yours in, and you'll probably be the last.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. My question is to the panel in general, and also to you, Kevin. Earlier, you said that the purpose of this session is to help decarbonize the university. So I would like to get your definitions of what decarbonize means. What are the units we could use to actually take measurements and look at time series for how the university is progressing to this goal, and that how decarbonization applies from the individual level to the department level to operations on campus, because we have so many different entities on campus that need to think about how do I decarbonize.
Wow. I will have some comments, but does anyone want to jump in, Marjorie?
I'm going to let you start.
Yeah, so
You're the climate action officer.
the question as it relates to communities. Now, Rutgers has its complete bank of experts in all of the categories that we are focused on. But as we talk about our communities, giving them the equal opportunity for them to identify opportunities to decarbonize, actually bringing down their carbon footprint because of environmental justice and all the issues that hit our community. So transferring what we know as a university, both scientifically as well as social and as well as policy, how can Rutgers actually participate in working with our communities being New Jersey, in helping them combat the same issues that we are on campus, in some cases without the high level of technology that we have to investigate. So transferring our knowledge and using that knowledge to integrate that with our community partners. So,
Well, I have a project at Duke Farms. It's 2,400 acre site. We've got, oh boy, I better not say anybody's names because I'll never remember everybody, but we've got 5 faculty. We're looking, so Duke Farms is this wonderful place. If you haven't ever been there, you should go. It's the former estate of Doris Duke, and it now is open to the public, and there's beautiful biking trails and walking trails through it. But Duke Farms came to us and they said, look, we want to be carbon neutral or carbon negative. How do we do that? And so we put a team together, soil scientists, life cycle analysis, geographers, forest, tree, ecology experts, and we're looking at all the functions there, and we're taking lots of measurements to understand what how we can use the natural systems there to offset the emissions of the system there, of all the emissions from the folks that travel there and all the utilities that are taking place there. So we're measuring carbon in the soil, getting baseline measurements, and then changing it over time. We have a little sub-project where we're looking at areas that are forested, which are have deer exclosures versus not deer exclosures, to see how that's changing things, and we'll hopefully have the results in another 1.5 years to see how we're doing. So that's one project. In response to the ag community in New Jersey, who was very interested in how farms can be used as well. Duke Farms is not just farms, but how farms can be used to address mitigation. We did an analysis looking across the United States at different programs in terms of ecosystem service values in the agriculture sector and other sectors that could be related to it, and to see, you know, what sort of models there might be out there for New Jersey to be able to borrow, whether it be creating a healthy soils program or what else is going on. And so we wrote a report. You can find it on our website, and we've been briefing folks on it, and we'll probably have another convening to get back to the ag community to say, oh, here are our results, and I think there'll be some movement. There's a bill in the legislature now talking about this. So I think that sort of gets at your question, Monica.
And I'll talk with you again during the break as well. Last question.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for a very interesting panel discussion. My question is kind of specific. It's for Rob, and it brings in the dual themes, I think, that we've been talking about of community engagement and environmental health. We've all read recently about this cluster of brain tumor cases in Colonia High School. And I was just wondering, has Rutgers been engaged in that evaluation, either from an epidemiologic or statistical or medical or any other aspect? Or have we been part of that?
We haven't been directly part of it as far as I know. These types of clusters are not actually unusual. There's perhaps 1,000 or certainly hundreds of clusters that are brought to light across the country every year. And there have been many investigations. There's an office at the Department of Department of Health, the New Jersey Department of Health, that deals with these issues. So I think it is being addressed by the state, which is sort of like the appropriate mechanism to do that. They have epidemiologists, state epidemiologists, who I know well, and I've communicated with her about other potential clusters, and they have a process to deal with it. It is a challenging problem because it's an emotional issue, certainly, but coincidentally, there can be many cases. It all depends on the individual circumstances, but there can be a surprising number of cancer cases in a particular area based on the prevalence of cancer, incidence of cancer, which sometimes people don't appreciate that it's more common than we might think sometimes. So we've been monitoring that, or we have discussions among our faculty, but we haven't been directly engaged in that, other than talking to the press and trying to explain or give some information like I'm doing now. So.
Thanks, Rob. So being an ex-military person, I feel like I failed because I didn't stop at 12:25. So thank you to our panel. Excellent job. Well done. So that's all we have as far as our time here. What I'd like to do is segue to our final speaker before we head to lunch. So you're going to hear from, and of course, thank you, Carrie, as well. I want to invite Swa Yake. He's a member of the Office of Climate Action Student Advisory Board and a PhD student at Rutgers, Newark. And would you come up? Oh, here you are.
Thank you all to the participants of all three roundtable discussions this morning. It was inspiring to learn about all the work workers already being done at Rutgers University towards climate actions. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to join us for lunch on the patio. All the food waste from the event will be processed through the aerobic digester in the Bush Dining Hall. Please dispose of your food waste in the market area. Thank you to the student for environmental awareness for assisting with this process. During the lunch, please take your time to look at the climate transformation showcase displayed on both the first and the second floor. There are short videos being shown in room 102 as well. All the showcase submissions can be viewed via hopping in the exhibit hall function. We also invite you outside to see the IPNO first 100% electric vehicle. You may have seen it when you was coming in. It's that big bus outside. We also would like you guys to help with voting for the best illustration for the direction for where the Rutgers is moving. Voting can be done by grabbing a sticky UR and placing it on a design that you like the most. Sorry. This also a reminder that this afternoon workshop will begin promptly at 1:30. We will have 3 sessions this afternoon, and you are welcome to choose the session you attend based on your interests. These workshops are an opportunity to participate, to learn, share, and connect. A list of sessions and the room location are on the large agenda by the registration table downstairs. You can also access this information via Hopkins. I think you can scan the back of your tag. At the close of the 3 afternoon section, we invite you all to join us for the reception on the patio, which will also begin at 4:30. Thank you for all your participation in the events, and we are looking forward to a fun and productive afternoon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.